Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm Felipe HOFFA. I work at Google. I live in San Francisco. And today I want to share with you some of the insights I've learned from genomics. Now, why would I speak about genomics? I'm not a genomic scientist. It turns out I happen to work with some very awesome genomic scientists that are using the same tools that I'm using on my day-to-day data development. So I get to share with them the features, for example, of BigQuery, Hadoop that I'm using, and they share with me the things they are doing with big data. And it turns out we are doing very similar things. So what I want to share with you today is how we can mix both worlds. The same tools that are being used in the genomics world are the tools that you can be using. And I would like to draw a parallel between both worlds today. So let's get started. First, I want to share with you this piece of news. This is back from May. I love reading news that I don't understand. In this case, it's about how a gene that was previously associated with longevity, people with this gene grow dilatory life than people that don't have it. But it turns out this gene is also, researchers discovered this gene is also associated with being smarter. So the first question we might have is, who here has this gene? No hands? It turns out in some places people know, because today we can learn what's our gene, what's the information inside our genes, and people are able to discuss this. You can go to forums online and you can see people telling, oh yes, I have it, or 2 people in my family have it. And it gives us an understanding of how we are built from the inside. So, but before going into genomics, let me go into the typical Google technologies diagram. I'm sure you've seen this before. A lot of the technologies you're using today, either inside Google or outside Google, started with these papers. Today I want to focus in these 2. MapReduce, you know how it turned out into how the outside world implemented it as Hadoop. And Dremel that we implemented as BigQuery, that is a service from Google that you can use. Let's start with MapReduce. I shouldn't stop here for long. You know what this is a big data conference. You already know that a little bit about how MapReduce works. You might be using Hadoop. Who here uses Hadoop? Just to get, yes, many hands. So I won't stop here very long. I just want to share with you this. This is the best example I've seen of how MapReduce works. It's basically making sandwiches. You have all the ingredients. The mapping part just takes care of slicing each ingredient. And finally, different workers reduce them to sandwiches. And that's how you can scale to a very big, efficient sandwich factory. I love this visualization. Now, deploying a Hadoop cluster has not always been easy, and we are trying to collaborate to help with that. We created this little utility called BDutil that allows you to deploy a Hadoop cluster on demand with very little effort. And we recently upgraded it to one-click to deploy. So if you let me, I will try to deploy a Hadoop cluster today. Basically, I have a project. This is the Google Developers Console. And here I just choose which zone I want my cluster, how many nodes I want, let's say 6, what's the cloud storage bucket where I will store information. Do I want to use Hadoop 1.2 or 2.4? Let's stay with 1.2, disk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If we wanted to use Spark, to install Apache Spark in this cluster, I would just need to mark this checkbox. I will not use Spark today, but you are getting a lot of Spark in other talks. So let's skip that for this one. and what size my master node should be, what size my worker node should be, and I just deploy a cluster. And with this, I start deploying sequence. Let me look at my virtual machines. Here's where I can see how many machines I have. Right now, is only one, but give me 3 or 10 minutes, and we will start seeing here more instances. And this is how I deploy a cluster. Let's give it some time, because I don't want to wait here 3 or 10 minutes. Let me continue with this. So we deployed it. This is the workflow that is happening automatically right now. First, we start an instance that will be the deployment coordinator, that will start the famous Hadoop master. The Hadoop master will start the nodes. Everything will get coordinated, and we will have a full Hadoop cluster ready to process anything we might want to throw it. And whenever we are done with this cluster, we can come back here and delete it, and we will stop having charges for all the machines involved. That's a pretty nice cluster. It works easy. But just to, I have this slide here just to, as a reminder that what I'm going to do today with genomics, I also want you to keep in mind on the parallels with your own use cases. Anyone works with genomics here? No one? Excellent. So you will believe everything I tell you. So let's talk about genomics. There is the personal genome project. We also have this problem of finding data to work with. I usually work with open data, and the personal genome project is a project started at Harvard, where they are opening the data from people that have donated their genomes information. Today they have 174 people. If you want to download this data, you can. And if you know how to analyze it, you can move forward and analyze it. And I will do a little bit of that today. So I mentioned downloading these files. These are very big files, a lot of information. So something we are trying to help with is how you can connect Hadoop to other data sources that might already have this data loaded. Google Cloud Storage on one side, a data store if you want our NoSQL database, or BigQuery, the one that I'm going to show you later. So these are the files. Each file, each human, encoded in this way, is about 2.3 gigabytes. That's what we have inside in our genes. We have a file for each participant. It's a tab-separated, not a comma-separated value file. And we can start playing with it. As you see, I loaded these files are loaded in Google Storage in the Harvard PGP folder. And we can see here that each file has a lot of information. For each person, we have, for each gene, for each chromosome, what do they have? A question mark means we don't know. We couldn't read this part. An equal means this portion of the chromosome is identical to the reference chromosome, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I would love to load these rows into BigQuery to analyze them in an SQL analytical database. But they are missing something. They are missing the ID of the patient. Why? Because we have that ID on the name of the file, but it's not on its row. So once I load this file into a relational database, I lose that information. So before importing this into BigQuery, I would like to transform the files. And transforming them, it's pretty easy. We just need a very short Python script that will look row by row, add the field, the ID at the very beginning, and then copy the rest. That's easy, but the problem I have here is how do I do that with 174 files, each of 2.3 gigabytes. And Hadoop can help us here. So if my cluster is ready, I could do this right now. Let me see if this works. How many instances do I have? Yes. So I used to have one. Now I have my master, my coordinator, my master, and all of the workers I asked for. Let me see if everything is all right. My Apache Hadoop, click to deploy. Yep, everything is all right. Let me try to connect to my new master node. Master is here. Have you tried this? You can SSH online. I want to open it in a different tab. And this will copy my private keys through the browser, and everything will be pretty secure, but I don't need any additional software. So do I want to connect to this master? Yes. And now I can do things like be in Hadoop. Let me see if this works. Everything is live, so if it takes more time than it should, here I am. I'm Hadoop now. I will download my little Python file. Let me bring it here. And once I have that file, I can run it. So I can tell Hadoop to go over all these files in cloud storage, run this Python file that I just downloaded, and to leave all the output in this Google Cloud Storage folder. And it should be that easy. Done. Well, it's not done. We have to wait a little. But that's how we run Hadoop operations on Google Cloud. We can connect to this guy too. Let me see. I want to allow HTTP traffic. So the master node always allows us to see how the operation is going. It has a nice, not a nice, but it has a web interface. You've used it. Here I am. Hadoop, of course, is port 530. Yep, I have my job tracker. And I have a job running. We are already 27% done. That's nice. That's fast. This is the admin interface that I was showing you. Now, when we are done with this cluster, we can just go and delete it, remove it. This will turn off all the servers we just turned on. And one nice feature of the Google Cloud Platform is that you get charged by minute. Not by hour, but by minute. So if we are ready in 10 minutes, you only get charged for 10 minutes of processing time, not the full hour. With a minimum of 10 minutes, but still, it can represent a large cost savings, especially if you are just launching and deleting clusters on demand. It's easy now. But there's more. Once these files have been transformed, I can load them in BigQuery. Who was here last year? Last year? Yes. Who came here 2 years ago? Yeah. Yes, of course you did. Yes, so you maybe have seen this part of the talk. Previously on Big Data Spain in 2012, the first year, Jordan came to present BigQuery. And he did a very nice job of introducing us to BigQuery. And basically Dremel, that's the paper that started it all. And in 2013, I was here to talk about BigQuery too, so I talked about Jordan talking about BigQuery. And the question is, can we go deeper? What are we having next year? Call me. But for tonight, it's me. Yep, that one. And so let me go very quickly over BigQuery because you already know what it is. It's fast, it's on the web, it's on the cloud, you don't need to configure anything. The price is how much data you're storing and how many queries you're running, no per hour charges, REST API. Last year I went over all the new features we introduced last year. This year also has a lot of nice features. including user-defined functions. We're going to review that this afternoon with Thomas. But for me, the biggest news, I'm super amazed on how prices are changing. So 2 years ago, when Jordan came for the first time, the cost of storage per terabyte was $120 per month. And today it's $20 per month. That's a huge discount. And if you think about it, price is the biggest driver of us being here, of the big data world. We were producing the same amount of data 20 years ago. We just didn't have anywhere to store it. Today we can store it, and as prices continue to go down, we will keep accumulating data and processing it and understanding it. And that's a beautiful thing. So I'm very proud of driving these costs down story. This is a demo. I didn't do it last year. I love doing it, just to show you the speed of BigQuery. Anyone here knows how many page views Wikipedia has in a month? Any guess? 1 million page views? More than 1 million? 50 million? Or 500 million? 15 million. It's more than that. How many billions? 5 billions. Okay, 5 billions. Let me see if we can count them. Let's go back to live demos. I have everything. Oh, this is for tonight's. Do you know Elsa? We will do some interesting analysis there. So I have everything loaded on a table. This is the August 2014 page views. And it's a table that has 5 columns. It basically says this page, this title, in this language, in the Spanish Wikipedia and the English Wikipedia, at this hour during the month, had this many requests. So number of requests per page per hour. And this table happens to have, it's a 400 gigabyte table with 6 billion rows. So we have more than 6 billion page views just because each row might indicate more than one page view. And if we wanted to know how many page views we had in August, we can write a simple SQL where we sum the requests. No need for a limit here. Easy, it's a sum. It's just going over 6 billion rows right now. And yeah, that's the number. We went over 6 billion rows on 4 seconds, and the result is 54 billion page views during August. Yes, and this is fast. I could have this value pre-computed, so to make it harder, let's try to run a harder query. Can you give me any random word? Any word at all? Random word, yeah. Something, so I don't have this demo prepared. Yeah, random. Oh, you want random? Okay, that's a random word. I loved it. So let's do a regular expression here. Don't do this at home with your regular database. Let me match the title. Let's start anything that starts with RA, anything here, and has an OM. And let's look at how many pages have this regular expression. A lot. How many are these? 12 billion pages. 12 billion? Kind of. You can count them later. But it was super fast. Now, if you want to know which are these pages, we can group by title. Let's order by the first column. Let me get the top 10. Oh, let's say top 30. Why not? Let me get the title. SQL is simple, but the amazing thing here is how fast we can go over 6 billion rows computing this. Here we have it. That's the page that is generating all the random, the 12 billion page views of random people that go to the random banner. We have more pages that say random, special random pages, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, we hit a very special page. Oh, here we have a normal one, random access memory, etc. Rainbow loom also matches the regular expression. And it could be, and Ray Romano, if you know him. So this is fast. And what I learned yesterday is if something is too fast, a benchmark is too fast to be true, is that we should be skeptic about them. So yes, of course you have to be a skeptic. But maybe you are just using BigQuery, and BigQuery is fast. And there is a reason why is it so fast. We've been through this diagram before. I'll be very quick. Basically, all the data stored in BigQuery is stored in distributed storage. We have a very fast network, fast access to this data. And once we launch a query like this, many servers as we need, start reading this data in parallel. Everything is stored in columnar storage. We get the full columns that the query refers to. And they just go through all these servers. These servers filter out the information we don't want. Further servers down the road, up the road, reduce this data even more until you get the final node that gives you the answer you were looking for. And this server tree is permanently on. And that's why you are not charged by hour. You are just charged by the queries you run on this tree. And it works. You can do a lot with SQL. If you wanted to load data into BigQuery, that's another question I get frequently. How are we doing on time? I have some. If you wanted to load data into BigQuery, let me connect here. In this case, if I wanted to load the Wikipedia page views, I would just go find them. I use Google for that. Wikipedia page views. Everything is here. It's a normal file on the internet. They published the raw data, 2014, 11. Let's get the data from November 18th at 8 a.m. Basically, this is UTC time. It's 1 hour behind. We are doing well here. It's just the freshest data possible. We are connected here. I can do my screen. So I'm on the cloud here. I'm not using Wi-Fi to download this file, but I can download any file from the internet into my GC instance. And I can run a command like this. BigQuery, load this file. It's a special kind of CSV. I'm doing November, what was the name of it? It's here. November 18 at 8. November 18 at 8. This is the name of the file. So November 18. And this file happens to have 4 columns. I just run this command. And not here, here. This starts loading each hour of page views of Wikipedia into BigQuery. We can come back to this later if you want to know what is happening around the world right now. For now, let me do a brief pause of who is using BigQuery. You will see me work a lot with open data, but I also work with different companies that I get to the studio to tell their stories because they have private data. We have a lot of partners that understand BigQuery, that consultants, visualization, ETL, loading data into BigQuery. You can look more into that. We have a very nice integration with Google Analytics. If you have Google Analytics Premium and you want to analyze your data, the raw data in BigQuery, you can. And because once the data is there, you can join it with your own data, with your customers' data, with weather data. You can understand what is happening in your stores depending on the day, on the weather, what's happening on phones, etc. Some of the customers I've been talking to, Streak, a startup that they do CRM on over Gmail, and they have thousands of customers, and they use BigQuery to analyze their logs, to analyze their customers. Pearson, the education company, they're using BigQuery to do data science. They contributed a BigQuery connector to Pandas, so they are able to understand how people are answering their tests, what questions are harder than others, they can cluster their students, etc. Shine, they are consultants in Australia. They discovered BigQuery and they've helped their customers analyze data as they could never before. Before they were doing only a small sample each day because they couldn't handle more. Today they just analyze the full month every time they need. We also did this machine learning experiment for Google I/O. You saw Jordan yesterday. Watch this video if you want to know more about how we correctly predicted the World Cup matches. There are a lot of other use cases, but let's go back to the one we are worried about today, genomics. We have a genomics API. We have an awesome team of genomics people working at Google with genomics, and our partners, they developed a pretty cool API, a specialized API in genomics, but they also discovered that to do mass operations, they can use the same tools we are using. In this case, let's see what they are doing with BigQuery. The files we transformed earlier, I can import them into BigQuery now that they have the missing field on each row. And once it's on BigQuery, you can find the table there. In BigQuery, you can have your own private data. It all has strong access controls. But you also have the option of sharing them, making them public. In this case, the CGI variants and other genomics tables are public and ready for you to analyze. This table happens to be 430 gigabytes. It has 430 gigabytes with 3 billion rows of human genome data. And you can just query it like some of our partners are doing. These are announcements we made this year. We are partnering with the NCI Cancer Genomics Cloud Project. They are using BigQuery to analyze the genes. You can read the blog post. We are also partnered with the Autism Speaks Institute. Autism is related to, it's a genomics related, I don't want to say disease, but the right word doesn't come to mind right now. And people are studying, learning about autism through SQL. And Hadoop and Spark, we have all of that connected. Ebola. This wasn't our study. This study was published in Science, Science magazine in September this year. And these researchers got samples of every patient that has that went through Ebola, and they were able to sequence the Ebola genome for each of these patients. And once you have that sequence, you can look at how it went mutating from person to person. And that way you can determine who initially got it, where is the outbreak, where it ends. Do we have two independent contagion episodes, or it's all one story? And once this, so here you can see a tree of how, in this case, everything started in Zaire, Gabon, and then it moved to other countries. And they made all of their data public. We are in the middle of a crisis, so the more data we have, the more we can do. And my friends at the Google Genomics team took this data and loaded it into BigQuery, and now it's there if you want to replicate these results or look further into them. As you can see, the Ebola genome is much smaller than a human. It's just a virus, but all the data is there in those 1,300 rows. You can find some code labs online if you want to go step over step on how to do this. In this case, we are looking at one of the studies that made a huge impact some years ago that revealed the variance, how variable our genes are depending on our race. Race is driven by genomics. And once you start looking at all these people, the data we have available, in this case, the 1,000 Genomes project, you can look at their genes, you can write SQL queries like that, and that gives you a very clear visualization that our genes are different by race. We have on the right Africa, while everything else is clustered America, Asia, and Europe on the other side. What does this mean? I have no idea, but it works. And it's clear, it's pretty clear that something is happening here. And going back to the piece of news I was telling you before, I wanted to know who here has this gene, but you still don't know. One day we will all know what we are made of. But I can tell what the people on the Personal Genome Project have. So I can write a query like this. Let me copy the query to BigQuery. This is alive. So in this case, I'm looking at the chromosome 13 in this position. I just want to know what each person has in their genome in this position. Yep, it worked. And here I can see each person. Most of them have the reference gene. Here we have one with two different genes, with the allele variants that express that, yes, they have this special gene. But I'm not getting numbers from here, but I can write another query. Let me find it. So basically, I can take the same query and use normal SQL to go through all these people and just get some counts. Chromosome 13, this position, but now I'm counting. Let's give the query a couple of seconds. We're going through over a lot of data. There it is. Yeah, so from the 174 people, we can see here that 175 people have the reference gene, while 32 have one of their genes, 32 have this special gene, and 5 have them on both sides. We have 2 people here that we don't know. It's real data. Real data will always be messy. It's not perfect. But somehow we can start from general news. We can go to the real data, and with a simple SQL query, we can learn what is happening around us. And that's my talk, like how we can go from using the tools we are using to understand the world to understand what we are made of. Thank you.